Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and thanks for joining the S.J. Child Show today. I'm your host, S.J. Childs, and today, I guess we won't be joining you shortly. We are here now. Hello. Take the banner down. We are here with Aaron. And is it DeVries?
DeVries.
It's so nice to meet you and have you here today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Tell us a little bit about yourself, introduction, and what brings you here today.
Yeah. So my name is Aaron DeVries. I live in Minnesota. Have all my life. Today it's pretty nice out. I got down to 25 earlier this week, so we're already feeling some cold weather here, but lived here all my life. I have two children. My son is, 23. My daughter just turned 22.
Wow.
She was diagnosed at 3 months old with epilepsy, and then cerebral palsy after that. So got introduced to the disability world through my daughter, and then learned about inclusion later on and been fighting for her to be included since that point in time, and just wanting to spread the word about inclusion. I've given 2 TEDx talks on inclusion. Started my own podcast a couple months ago talking with people about inclusion. So have inclusion tattooed on my arm, so I'm kind of all in on inclusion.
I love it. You're the inclusion dad, just like the logo says. And so what a wonderful way to represent. And it sometimes is for my story as well. My son fueled our passions and our desires to help educate and bring change in our society for the purpose of being included. You know, I heard on this podcast the other day somebody saying the difference between belonging and fitting in. And when you belong, you don't have to fit in. You don't have to try to fit in. When you belong, you're just a part of it. When you fit in, then you're masking. Then you're having to wear the certain clothes, or you're having to speak a certain way. Or I just thought that was, I hadn't really looked at it that way and thought, what a wonderful perspective and great way to teach, especially kids, you know, that you want to find where you belong, where you can be yourself and let your masks down and things like that.
Yeah.
How hard was it as a dad to find a sense of community and a sense of belonging?
I mean, as a dad, I guess, if I'm being honest, I don't have a pretty, like, a dad community around me. Honestly, it's mostly, even still, a lot of, any meeting I go to, it's usually, if there's other guys there, it's kind of surprising to me. So the disability world, at least where I'm at, it's heavily female. So I'm comfortable in that setting. It's just interesting how heavily female in my experience it's been. But as far as, I have a sense of community with, other parents, probably mostly moms, but there are some dads who I hang out with that, have children with disabilities or on IEPs. So I do get that community from them as well. Great.
It is tricky, isn't it? And it can be so isolating, and especially when every human goes into having children with, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And you have ideas in your head of what you might do. And it's never like anyone's fault or, guilt or anything like that. But the ideas are still not being able to move forward, and you have to let those go. And that can be tricky. But creating like your own communities and things, that can be really hard too, but it is necessary sometimes when you find yourself in these types of things. So just like you're doing with your podcast, I love that idea. And I think it's really important to have the dad representation. And I hear what you're saying, how there's so many, moms out there being the advocates and being the fighters. And it's not to say that the dads aren't, they're just not as vocal or out or open about it. And we'd love to see that. We'd love to see the idea of being an advocate change. What do you think is maybe like, what is a drawback that some of these guys might have, being a guy yourself, to be able to say, why aren't enough people, dads coming to the tables?
I mean, that's a great question. And if I think to myself, how did I get, or what about me led me down this advocacy path? I'm not really sure either. I mean, my dad, growing up, we went to church every time the door was open, and my dad would always, if the preacher was up there saying something during his sermon, my dad that week would go and look for himself, see what his view on the Bible was, or what he thought it said, and then bring it up. So I kind of have that role model of not just taking everything at face value, maybe questioning things. That thing, I'm not sure if that comes into it. It's just I also get from my mom. I mean, if she watches a Hallmark movie, she's crying. So I have similar, where not Hallmark movies because I don't watch them, but like if it's something where it's more emotional, I'll tear up. So maybe just DNA, that kind of stuff, or what I was around. But I think a lot of it is just, I mean, it's something that probably where my strengths lie, which I feel like in a mom dad child relationship, you kind of have to, whoever is best at which piece of the responsibility, maybe have them be able to do that. I'm not saying that I'm better than my daughter's mom in the situation. It's just something that I like digging into, like spending the time on. And early on in my journey, I realized that, she was having 90-minute grand mal seizures. So I'm like, I'm not going to work 60, 80 hours a week, never be home. I mean, I don't want to be doing that. Something happens and I'm not able to spend time with her. So early on, I kind of got over the conception that I should be working all the time as a dad and just doing that. So maybe that helped. I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like maybe it's just the roles that we still have in society on dads versus moms. I guess I haven't come with a good answer. It's just, I love it. It's kind of interesting though.
Well, it seems to me like your parents probably instilled a really great sense of emotional intelligence in you, for one, which gave you the the ideation that you could do more for your child than other people, what society, right? It's just crazy. Really, when you're in the disability world in any way, you very, very quickly realize that society isn't a lifestyle that your family lives by, and that all that goes to the wayside. I'll tell you, I used to joke that it was like my house had round walls instead of corners. That's how different it was over here. Nothing even looked like a real house. I mean, of course it is just a regular house, but the inside and the people that exist in it, they exist in their own dimension of the world, not in society's idea of what it is. And giving space to that and making that environment your number one intention is so important for the development of that child, of that relationship. I love what you said about being responsible and accountable kind of for the role that you provide, because I had careers. I could have made great money and kept working, but my husband also had a fine career that could be fine. I wanted to stay home. I always wanted to be a mom. We both knew it'd be great, for me to do that, and being responsible and accountable to say, okay, well, I'm going to have to forfeit those careers, those ideas to stay at home and create this environment. You go to work. I trust this, part of your plan of your role. So I think that's really smart parenting or co-parenting if that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, I love that. What are your plans for, what do you see that kind of needs to change? Are there any, I know that's a big loaded question, but
in regards to what, just, or
do you think, I guess that's a really good question to ask too, in regards to what? So they're adults now. So let's go back to when they were kids and like maybe when she was getting medical care as a child.
Sure.
Has that changed till now as far as like the amount of support you get from medical providers? Or is it worse and harder with insurance?
I mean, early on, I feel like, okay. I mean, I feel like definitely when she was younger, especially medical care, I mean, I feel like it definitely is different because you go from like the pediatric age stuff to the adult, and then it does look different. So I feel like it's definitely different. The support I feel is still there.
Oh, good.
We have, in Minnesota, there's a hospital medical facility called Gillette Children's Hospital, and then they have like a transitioning to adult, and they're one of the leading, or pretty well known for like cerebral palsy, those types of things. So we're fortunate in that aspect. So they have a pretty good program. The school stuff to me is more scary because like I didn't know anything about disability, anything about special education before my daughter. So, not knowing anything, you just go along with what they tell you. And then you realize like, I don't think they're withholding stuff from me on purpose, but just not sharing everything that's out there. So you learn. And then we wanted her to be fully included after she had already gone down the path of being like a separate special education room. So we had that battle pretty much her whole school career, getting her more and more included. But even that, how not much fun it was. Like now it's, she gets to this age, she ages out of that school system, and then the supports in place for her when she's an adult are much less available than in the school setting. So there's definitely some getting used to that, or how do you navigate that part? And looking back, I mean, we should have been thinking about it more diligently earlier, planning better, but I mean, you can only do what you can do. There's only so many hours you need to balance as a family in your life. I mean, what's the most important? I don't want to work all day, get done, take her to therapies and all this other stuff, and then sleep and not spend time with each other. So you have to balance this stuff. But definitely for me early on, I was, like I said, I didn't know anything. I also had a thought that, doctors, teachers, or their positions, I couldn't question them. I didn't have, I'm not sure where it comes from, but didn't have the knowledge to question what they were doing until things would happen where Dr. A would treat a seizure this way, Dr. B, in my mind, the same thing was happening, would treat it differently. And I was like, yep, they are human just like me. They went to school. They're just making guesses or the best judgment they can given the information they have. And then I was like, okay, well, it's okay. I'm a parent. If something doesn't feel right, I'm going to question it. So once that happened, it definitely opened my eyes, opened doors, started questioning. Not all doctors like it when you question them. But I'm her dad. So if I see something that doesn't make sense, I'm going to ask a question. I feel it's my job and role. So definitely, once I got over that thought, or, that whatever that was, then definitely changed things for me.
I can completely agree with you. And I think that when we, as parents, are curious, I think it's a great way to put it. Like, you need to stay curious. You need to be constantly asking, is this therapy helping? Is it my child growing? Is it restricting them is all types of things, medical providers, therapies, counselors. There's just so many different modalities and resources that we use and services. And there's not just one fits all. There's not a one fits all for anyone. Naturally, as you're probably very aware, there's several at a time. And it can be so overwhelming to be. And like you said, you go in, I think, like you said, maybe taught to trust what a professional says, and that's what you believe, and that's what you go off of. And I can hear my dad saying, right now, oh, well, if the doctor says so, kind of, and I'm like, well, right. And I have a medical paralegal background. And so I was constantly questioning things that were coming onto my desk. That was my job. And so I see how it's tricky for people until they're taught or till they learn how to stand up and do that for themselves.
Yeah. And the story that brought that to head for me was she was having a 90-minute grand mal seizure. She's in the ER. They've tried the normal rescue meds, and then they're going for something else, which was in a syringe. So they brought it in, and the doctor said, we're going to put this in the line. We got to slowly put it in over 5 minutes or it's going to burn her veins. So they did that way. The next time, same thing. They took it, they brought the syringe in, stuck in the line, went, shh, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, what just happened? They're like, what? I'm like, the last time she was here in the same situation, the doctor had them put in over 5 minutes. Now you just shot it in the line in one shot. So either last time you took too long, or this time you burned her veins. And they're like, they just were not happy with me. But I'm like, hold on. Something was different. So what's going on? So yeah.
Did they answer that?
They did. I don't think they answered it in the moment. We ended up having to meet with the head of the ER and got a protocol in place. So in her file, there was a protocol everybody would follow. So good. But then your parents are in, she's in the ER, the seizure's not stopping. I mean, how much questions do I want to ask? Because I don't want them to, get upset or take their time away from trying to, help her get better. So then you're in that position. Do I bring it up now? Do I bring it up later? What's the best time to say something?
Wow.
So.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine what a resilient daughter and father and brother and sister, mother, whatever, all the pieces are. You guys are just so resilient to have to go through these things over and over again, and to be able to share the stories and the education. Tell us a little bit more about the Inclusion Dad podcast and what you talk about, the kind of guests you have on, things like that. Or if you don't, if you just do yourself.
So what I've been doing is I just, I've gotten only 2 of them where I've done short episodes by myself talking about stuff. Otherwise it's getting parents of children with disabilities on or people with disabilities. And it's just a short conversation. I just want to talk about inclusion. So I always ask my guests, what's your definition of inclusion? And then another question I always ask is, what is something that we can do today to make the world more inclusive? And that one comes more from, for a long time, I look into the laws. The law says, in my opinion, they should start off being included. And then if that doesn't work, they can't, with supports in the gen ed class, if that doesn't work, maybe back off and move to a different setting. But so that's kind of my view of it. But just me alone saying that to my daughter's school didn't make them want to do it. And then I would get upset, this is the law, this is what you should be doing, why aren't you? So I'm trying to shift, my thought process or my energy more into how can I make the world more inclusive daily by small things, spread that message so more people are doing it, and then hoping that, or I know that will, make the world more inclusive overall. So it's more of an energy. Where do I want to, put my energy towards? So that's what I want to do just with the podcast is just talk about inclusion, get people's stories out there. I'm divorced and my partner, we've been together, I think almost 3 years, and she didn't have this much exposure exposure to somebody with a disability before we got together. So just, she said several times about ADA or different things. Like there's laws in place, so I thought everything was okay, fine. There's no issues, but just sharing my story, raising awareness, sharing other people's stories, just to make people aware that, especially students like my daughter, who's considered, she qualifies for special education under multiple categories. Like in those situations, the number of kids in the gen ed setting with those classifications is pretty low numbers. So just getting that awareness out and trying to get them more included.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love this. Let's turn your questions around on you.
Okay.
What is your definition of inclusion?
Oh man, my girlfriend asked me that too, and then I'm like, I need to figure this out. So my definition of inclusion is just, to me, it's kind of like you talked about belonging, or I'm old enough to remember the show Cheers, where you just go, everybody knows your name and they're glad you came, and that where you just go someplace and you don't have to, for us, you don't have to make sure it's wheelchair accessible. You don't have to, this isn't accessible, so you don't feel like you belong and that kind of thing. So it's just being able to go to a concert and you just go and you don't have to make sure it's accessible, like I said, and just go and enjoy it and not have to think about all the inaccessibility and that type of thing. And even being invited, just if there's a party or if there's a family thing and they're having a birthday party, well, if it's not at a place where my daughter with a wheelchair can get into, then you makes you feel like you don't want us to participate. So just making sure your events are accessible for people in wheelchairs or other mobility needs or sensory needs and stuff like that.
So important. And it's a really big question. How can you change the world? And you kind of answered it already. And as far as you're trying to make changes yourself. And I think that that's the best we can do is make changes ourselves in the way we model our behavior towards all humans. I hope that my children see that some of my best friends out in the world are the baggers with Down syndrome and the people at the gas station that are, taking the garbages out. And I'm like, thank you. If you didn't do this, oh my gosh, what would be happening right now? There would, your every job, every person's piece that they give to society and productivity is value. And not enough people give value and see value and offer that, handout or whatever. Not even like that. I don't mean it like that, but they don't see them. And I love to do that. I love to just acknowledge people and say thank you to them. And I hope that my kids see that. And I do see, in my kids are 12 and 14. So they're a little bit in this crazy teenage life that we have going on. But I do see the resilience and the beauty in my daughter's caretaking of others and her way that she has compassion, especially for those that she sees maybe underserved. And I think that it comes so much easier almost for a sibling. And she is autistic as well as her brother, who is profoundly autistic and has many more support needs than her. So she can see that challenge, if you will, and in where we need to give supports. But just like you said, we'd love to go anywhere and not have to be double looked at 3 or 4 times to see why somebody in our family might be acting differently than everyone else, and and it's time for change in perception for others, not just they need to take action and they need to take mental actions to stop treating people badly. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. Yeah. What kind of things do you have that you're working on in the future? Any programs or ideas or things that you have coming up?
Right now there isn't anything really else in the pipeline. I just kind of started the podcast a couple months ago. Just felt like the universe was telling me I should, so I did that, and now just went through that door. So just kind of seeing where it goes. I mean, it's just been really great meeting people such as yourself, sharing conversations. That piece. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to end up. It just right now this is the right place to be, so we'll see where it goes. There's just so many. Part of my thing is I see so many things that you could work on or need to be worked on, and then you get kind of overwhelmed with where's the best place to spend my energy. So right now it's the podcast for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing the right thing, and congratulations on starting it. And I really can't wait to see how wonderful it is in the future. I'd love to check back in with you and see how it's been going. And of course, there's so many wonderful people I'd love to put you in touch with that I think you would find value in, and vice versa. So that'll be fantastic. It's one of my favorite parts really about podcasting is the connections that you can make.
For sure.
And some without ever even knowing that they will be a part of your life or that it will have an effect on them. So it's really interesting, the opportunities that can come out of it, out of being passionate about your drive, whatever drives you. So.
And there's been a couple, more than once, probably close to 5 now, just in the short time I've been doing it already, where just I've had guests on or been on somebody's show and they're like, just by you sharing your story, it's helped me be able to share my story. So stuff like that, where you're doing the right thing or stuff like that. So it's pretty fun.
That's the best. Yeah. I think that I do like autistic events where I host autistics to come and speak around the world.
Sure.
And some opportunities that come out of those things. Oh my gosh, my heart. It just melts all over the place because, they'll call and they'll be like, whoa, I got in touch with this employer that you interviewed on, had in this event. And now I'm starting this job and I'm going to have the, the income I deserve. And I'm being, cool. There's so much to be gained from coming together. And really what we're doing, creating a sense of belonging and inclusion. Yeah. So please join us. Yeah, please join us and join the light that we're trying to spread and show onto everyone. So wonderful work that you're doing. And before we go, tell everyone where they can go to find you and look for the podcast, have a website, all that good stuff.
Sure. So my website is theinclusivedad.com. Has all my links to my socials on there. And then the podcast links are on there. Podcast is on Apple, all the big platforms. It's just The Inclusive Dad. If you look that up, it's on there. So
I misspelled it. I'm like, that might happen once in a while, right? Theinclusivedad.com. I think I got it that time.
Yeah.
Bam. Perfect.
There you go.
Yay. Oh, it's been such a pleasure and such a great conversation with you today. I hope we get to stay in touch and,
Absolutely.
Catch up with one another and share guests and all of those things, because it's such a wonderful way to bring education and share, because like you said, so many people can gain things from conversations with others. Right. And I surely love that about podcasting as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much. And we're heading into, where are you at? Oh, you said Minnesota, and you said it got down to 25 this morning.
Yep.
We also got our first snow last night. I'm in Utah. And our mountains are all covered in their first light snow.
Nice.
And yes, we had to turn our heaters up a little bit this morning.
You can keep the snow for now.
Yeah, right. Oh, thanks. I'd like for it to get back to 70. Actually,
Yeah.
that would be nice to finish fall out. But
There
no,
you
it's
go.
great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and
you.
I look forward to staying in touch.
Yes.